Hi everybody, I wanted to make a quick tutorial on how to make a ring sling. It's really easy and it's really fast even if you don't have very good sewing skills. This is the ring sling that I've made for myself. I've been using this for years. It's really very simple. This is the adult size, and then I made a smaller one for the kids. So the one I'm making today is going to be the smaller one for kids or very petite women, but the sewing instructions are basically the same. So the first thing you want to do is get fabric, and the fabric you want is cotton. A quilting cotton is usually good. You don't want flannel, that would be too warm. So a cotton, you can tell that it's cotton simply because it's a woven. It's like a four-way woven as opposed to like a knit. So typically fabric cotton comes in exactly double this width. Which is a 60-inch wide, I believe. And you would need about 2.5 to 3 yards for an adult size sling. Now because this is for a child, you basically want it long enough to go around the child in the front, in the back, and then have some tail left over. This is too short for an adult, but not much longer, and it would be the right size for an adult. So 2.5 to 3 yards depending on how large the adult is, or about 1.5 yards for a child sling. And like I said, the adult one, the fabric will be exactly twice as wide. All I did for the child one is I split the fabric halfway down the length. Now you can tell that I didn't cut this. This is torn. With woven fabrics like this, if you just cut a tiny bit at the top, you can then actually tear the fabric all the way through, and it will keep tearing it along that exact same length. So in addition to the fabric, the only other thing you will need is rings for your sling. And the website I recommend is slingrings.com. I'm not affiliated with them, but they sell really good secure rings for slings. They have them in metal and they have them in plastic, and you need 2 per sling. And they have other sizes too. This is the medium and this is the small. Although even for this is really just for a doll size carrier. Even for the child size carrier, I use the regular full size. So you need a pair of metal or plastic sling rings. Now the first thing you do, whether it's the adult one or the child one, you want to fold the fabric in half the long way. So it's kind of like a hot dog bun. Think of it as a hot dog bun fold. And you put it in half, and you mark your half because you basically want to open these up and fold them to the middle like this. And when you have that, and you don't need to go all the way down, it's just for the top. When that's done, you fold this. And for the adult one, you would actually do this a third time because the adult one is twice as wide. So if you do this a third time on the adult one, it'll end up this width. But on the child one, you don't want to get super skinny. Unless you want to use one of the smaller rings, you could do that. Depending on the size of the child, I made one for my 9-year-old, and this was a better size width-wise because that's going to be up on her shoulder. If it were too skinny, I thought that might cut in. If you're making one for a very young child and it's just for her to carry her doll, you might want to go all the way to this width. But basically the principle is the same. Once you have it folded like this, you get your rings and you slip them both over. And then you fold this over, because this is where you're going to sew the rings in. Now, before I sew this together, I'm actually going to hem this side. And I'm also going to hem the bottom. And in this case, I'm going to hem one of the long sides. The other is the selvage, so this doesn't fray. I'm not going to hem that, I'm only going to hem this. Now, had I left this in the adult size, the double width, I wouldn't have had to hem either of the long sides because it would have the selvage on both sides. Here, because I tore it, it only has it on one and not the other. So before I start sewing in the rings, I'm going to hem the bottom, I'm going to hem one of the long rails, and I'm going to hem the top real quick. Okay, so I finished hemming this. I forgot to mention earlier, you want to wash your fabric and dry it before sewing because it's cotton, it's going to shrink a little bit. So anyway, I forgot to mention that. Wash your fabric first. Okay, so I hemmed it on the long rail. The other side didn't need to be hemmed. I hemmed what's going to become the tail. And then the top here, where I'm going to actually put the rings, I only folded this over once. Now you could hem it like this. The reason why I only like to fold it over once is because by the time I'm done folding this for the slings, there are so many layers of fabric there that I simply find it too thick and I only go half. I only fold it over once because it's going to get folded over a second time here in just a minute after I put the sling rings on. Okay, so fold both rails to the middle, fold it a second time, slide both rings on, and see what I was saying is that because I'm going to sew it on here, this will close that in automatically. So what I do typically here is I just put a couple of pins in just to keep it from sliding while it's under the sewing machine. And this is the last stitch that's left on this. What I'm going to do now, I'm going to make a box here. I will sew this way, down here, across here, back up here, and then I'm going to sew an X through here. And the reason for that is that because this is what's holding the rings, I don't just want to make one simple seam, although you could do that. I find it's more secure with having a nice big square there. Not only that, I will use a triple stitch instead of just a single stitch. I use the one that makes each stitch 3 times. And also by making, instead of just, you know, making this shorter and doing a single seam across, this kind of makes a bit of a pad. And since this sits on the back of the shoulder when you're wearing the sling, this is kind of a bit of a shoulder pad. So having it, you know, like 8 layers here makes it nicer. So I'm going to sew across here, down here, and I will show you what that looks like when it's done. Okay, so if you look here, you can see that I did that box with an X in it, and you can tell if you look closely that this is like a triple stitch just to make it really secure. So the rings are secure in here now. All the fabric is nicely gathered here. So basically to close the sling, you grab the tail and go through both rings and then fold over and go through just one ring. And then basically to make the ring larger or smaller, you just pull it through here. Now this is obviously a little small for me because it's made for a small child, but the principle is the same for using it. I'm right-handed, so I typically like to have the rings on my right side because my right hand is still available even if I have to hold on to the baby. And then, you know, this would only work for a super tiny baby on me. You can make it tighter once you put the baby in by pulling on the tail. And if you pull just on this end of the rail, the top one, which controls this, you could make just the top tighter if you want to secure the baby's head more. Or if on the bottom you find that it's too loose on the bottom rail, because basically you want to have the lowest part of the baby in the pocket, so that can either be the bottom with this rail up behind the baby's knees, or when it's a newborn you can also just fold their legs in and have them in here completely and have them in the pouch all the way. In any case, to tighten this inside rail, you would then pull on this one, and that tightens just the inside rail. Or if you pull on both ends evenly, it tightens the whole sling. So you just have to kind of learn to use it. It makes it easier for kids because this is only half as wide, so there's less fabric to control, and the tail is short, so this is a kid's sling. But the adult one works the same exact way. So I hope this tutorial helped you.